Okay, everyone. Hello and welcome to the latest installment of our Industry Leaders panel. We are just going to hold on for a couple of minutes until we get some more attendees joining us, but I can see the numbers steadily streaming in at the moment. We normally give ourselves a couple of minutes for people to get in and get settled. But we are, of course, joined by another fantastic group of panelists today and are going to be looking at the topic of evolving student recruitment strategies in 2021, something that I know we're all very keen to hear more about from our expert panel. We'll get started in just a minute or two, and we're just going to wait for some more attendees to join. Okay, so we've reached my 90-second limit to start. So I'll just welcome everyone. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from today. We are delighted to be hosting another Edvisor Industry Leaders panel, this time on the topic of evolving student recruitment strategies. And today we're delighted to have our event sponsored by NIB. And I'm joined here by Kath McHugh, who's going to tell us a little bit more about NIB and the services that you provide.
Thank you, Ben. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. So NIB Health Funds is an Australian-based health insurer who has been around for over 70 years in the health insurance industry. More recently, in the last 30 years, we have been dealing with the international market. And so we deal with students, international students, also workers and visitors coming to Australia as well. And more recently, in more recent times, we are branching out into other markets and destinations as well, such as the US and potential other destinations soon to follow. So Fantastic. It is quite an exciting time.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's quite a busy time for insurance as well during this year. So I'm wondering, how is NIB working to support international students in 2021?
Yeah, definitely. So the last 12 months has obviously been quite challenging, not only for offshore, but for our onshore based students that, are here. So as part of our strategy, we have delivered things like health and hygiene packs to over 700 students in universities, over 63,000 meals through an organisation called Oz Harvest, and supporting mental health programs. And so that's definitely one area, mental health, that we are looking to further evolve as we move into 2021 and 2022 as well.
Fantastic. And of course, through our partnership as well now, NIB OSHC, for those going to Australia, is now available through educators and agencies through the Edvisor marketplace.
Absolutely. So NIB OSHC is definitely there. So the core product for Australian-bound students is certainly available. And, we're obviously working to further our partnership with Edvisor as well, but we're going to obviously open up different revenue channels and aspects to all of Edvisor agents and clients, which will be great.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Well, thanks, Kath, for joining us today. We obviously massively appreciate the sponsorship of this event. And of course, if you're looking for more information on the Edvisor marketplace and NIB insurance, please do reach out to your Edvisor account manager as well, who'll be able to tell you more about that. With that, I'm going to crack straight on to introducing our wonderful group of panelists today who are joining me. I'm very happy to be delighted to be joined by William Herrera, who's the CEO and president of Estudiantes Embajadores and AMTE. I'm also joined by Paula Gate, who is the marketing director of Blue Studies International. We have Matthew Schneider joining us, who's the director of residential recruitment at Nord Anglia Education. We have Suraj Sadasivan, who is the associate director of international recruitment at Torrens University. I'm also joined by Bernardo Rivieros, who's the Director of International Strategy at GUS, or Global University Systems. And we're joined by Julian Fonseca, who's the CEO of Mate Education Group as well. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to dive right into the questions. And obviously the first area we want to look at is looking at how do you as educators and agencies recruit students in 2021? There are countless recruitment strategies being adopted across our industry, whether that be student fairs, social media, ads, webinars, e-commerce, and much more. But I'm interested to find out in this particular year in 2021, which are you finding most effective? I'm going to maybe hand over to Willie to kick us off on this topic. It'd be great to hear more about what you're doing down in Mexico.
Thank you very much, Ben, the Edvisor team, and thank you very much for inviting me here, and hello to all my colleagues as well. Certainly 2020 represented a very challenging aspect, and that kind of trickled down to 2021. So previously we were doing kind of the same marketing strategy as everyone, probably, in terms of fairs, webinars, information sessions in presence, and that could not be done in 2020. So in one way it was very good because it saved us a lot of time and it saved us a lot of money. So we turned into social media and try to be creative and try to be up top of what everyone is doing, or even try to be proactive and do something that nobody's doing it. So in terms of what we're doing in Estudiantes, we obviously we converted everything into online webinars, our offices, seminars. We started obviously very heavily in Facebook, TikTok, Google, and so on. And basically that's kind of, in this last year and this year is kind of hit and miss. You try different things and you see what works, try to develop on that sense. And obviously WhatsApp as well, the robots, the chatbots, those has been quite the communication that we've done right now, not only within our organization, but also to the students, to the parents. One thing that created the pandemic, and I think it's a good one, that at least in Mexico, you had, the people were very used to set up appointments, to meet you in person, to see your office, to see where you are, if you're real. And it couldn't be done last year. And also, at least in Mexico, I'm still working from my home most of the time. Still kind of back and forth, but most of the time I'm still working from my home. And that doesn't create any problem with the parents right now. They just say, send me the link and we can have a chat right now as well. Obviously you have to build into like what brings confidence and trust to the parent. And that probably that's a challenge in for everyone. Like now that you cannot see it, how can you build trust in a more electronical relationship?
Okay, fantastic.
So basically that will be done in 2021. Yeah.
And I'd imagine, Matt, for example, I know obviously North Anglia looks at high school products a lot, mainly. That trust and that sort of developing that bond with parents that they're used to having as well must have been quite a challenge, I would imagine.
Yeah, certainly it's being able to be in person, especially the families that we're working with are expecting to have a very personal relationship with the institution, with the faculty that are teaching their sons and daughters. So how were we able to then take that to the families when we couldn't physically go there? And what we found is it's having to create content, and a lot of high quality content in ways that we could deliver it both live to families, and then ways where we could have our partners or our families that are in time zones that didn't quite, weren't very copacetic for the time zones that our schools are located in, that they could still access that material. So that's where we made a big shift to back when the pandemic started. I think that as we move forward, it's looking at what were the positives that came out of the development of those tools that we can continue to leverage into a market where we've already seen in some of the countries that we have recruit heavily in, that there is an appetite to be able to get back in person. to be able to just want to see each other again. And I know we had chatted about this a little bit on our conversation the other night as we prepped for this meeting, of just wanting to be able to get together and see each other. Our families are looking for the same thing, but they also have now found the conveniences, as I think Willie had mentioned, where they can send me the link. How often do we hear that? Send me the link, let's jump on a Zoom call, let's get on Teams and have the conversation. So how can we pull those two pieces together will be key. We'll have early adapters, and we've seen that with the high school markets, as a lot of our students are looking at long-term study. We know that the high school option for them is a step towards university, towards their master's, PhD programs. But how are, I guess, those early adapters are going to come back, and now as borders are opening, we're seeing that already. Yeah. I think the real challenge will be, how do we pull these two pieces together when we go into 2022, 2023?
Yeah.
That's where we'll start seeing more of the challenges.
Well, can I add to?
Yeah, please do.
To that place? Yes. So like, what William said, thanks, Ben, by the way, and hello, everyone. Like William said earlier, everything is now online, right? I mean, given the current situation with COVID, the borders are closed. The only way we can reach students right now is through online medium. So having said that, though, there are hundreds and hundreds of webinars and seminars happening around the world, and agents are, I mean, not just agents, but students are attending. I spoke to a student some time back, and he said to me that he attended about 18 webinars in a week. So I think to some point, the students are also getting webinar fatigue. So we need to be really a bit more strategic and focused on what we want to relate to students as well, and how we want to recruit them. So I guess, from Torrent's point of view, what we do as well is we try to keep our webinars short and sweet and to the point. So, students want to hear real life stories. That, I mean, there's a lot of webinars going on, institutions talking about how wonderful the institutions are, how beautiful the campus location is, or the campus is, how wonderful the buildings are, and so on and so forth. But given that students these days are still reluctant to study online because they're not sure about what it's going to be like, what the experience is going to be like, running panel discussions like this with current students, engaging with new students would be I think would be an effective way to actually get the students to tell the real life stories, because students want to hear real life stories. They want to hear real experiences from students who are currently studying with us. I think that's going to be really effective. Another stakeholder that we kind of miss touching on are parents. In most countries, parents are the key stakeholders, right? Because they make the decisions for their kids. But we focus a lot on students. We run student webinars, we have student testimonials, we have student info sessions, but we also forget that we need to go to the source. We need to go and touch on, we need to talk to the parents. So running, again, seminars like this or panel discussions like this with parents of current students, engaging with potential students' parents, I think will be really powerful in recruiting students in the future.
I would like to add something up there. Hello, everyone, and hello to the panelists as well as the attendees. Look, it's really interesting to see the perspective of different markets, right? Like we're talking about the juniors, where you have to engage the parents directly and to explain to them, nowadays using technology, what's the process of enrollment. But then again, what we have to also think about is the other markets, which is the 18 plus and the young adults and adults, right? And also how those adults are being recruited onshore, because I believe the situation now with a lot of agents is, and I include ourselves in that, is we rely a lot on the offshore markets. But then again, when borders close, we had to switch back into the students that are inside the country. And I guess everyone can relate here with me. And that's been a challenge. Technology has been fantastic in that sense, because it's allowed us to implement and improve new ways to reach out to clients out there, right? As Suraj said and Matthew said, webinars and seminars, et cetera, et cetera. They all been fantastic ways, but also I think it's important to highlight that students have relied a lot more on the experience of agents during the pandemic and the advice on agents during the pandemic to put them in a place where it takes them somewhere else, right? So the quality of the assistance that agents offer and the quality of education that a lot of providers deliver has been really important. And that's been kind of like back to as well a little bit of the traditional methods, which is the one-on-one sitting down with students and advising them as to where to go, whether if it's through a Zoom call or whether if it's through a Hangouts, whatever the technology has been used. I think that has also been brought up into what happened last year. So I think we have to also consider those two perspectives of the markets, the offshore and the onshore, and how students react in that way.
And I would like to add something to what Julian is saying as well. And I think this something that we have seen is the importance of being the relationship between the institution and the agency to be so close, because something, as William was saying, it is hard to build trust when you don't know who the other person, like the person in the other end is, right? And we have seen an increase on students contacting the institutions directly after they have spoken to the agency. So it's like they want to confirm the information that they already received. No, so not necessarily 100% of the cases, but we have seen an increase in that. So it's very important for us as institutions to be able to be really connected with the agencies, working really closely with the agencies. We are trying to do our best. Sometimes it's hard because the students, sometimes they change names or email addresses, etc. So it's hard to track them, but we have seen definitely the students coming to the agencies and then coming to the institutions just to double check information. So it is very important that a strong connection between institutions and agencies.
Yeah, I want to add something regarding Julian and Bernardo. The connection with the institutions and the agents is essential. It's like the first step, and we have to have this conversation each day. And normally we were waiting for the representative to travel abroad and see your office and get this conversation. And now, like you say, it's all Zoom link, and we can have this conversation like almost every day. And the WhatsApp message asking the representative, do you have this course? Do you have this scholarship? Because the students are now able to have all the information. That's something that has changed also. Normally they went to an office or an agency and they ask about the information for schools, and now they're more prepared. They're like, I already saw the institution that I want to go. I just need help with the process. Yeah. So that's why we have to be really connected. And as Raz said, we have to be more creative because we already use all the technology. We already did the webinars. We already had all the online fairs, and we have to keep on track because this is going to continue. The online is not going to die, but as well, we cannot forget about the offline, as you say, for the parents. For example, we are doing news on newspapers. We are using radio because that's something that parents are still using. I'm talking like the big and old market that we are focusing, but it's not only online. We have to think about all our markets, the parents, the onshore, the offshore market.
Yeah, it's interesting that I mean, I think one of the things that sort of is coming out to me from everyone as well is that there obviously has to be that consistency in information that gets delivered as well to the students, so that when the students are checking that information on your website or on an educator's website or an agency website, or being delivered a student proposal, for example, there needs to be a consistency of that information. There's obviously where someone like Edvisor comes in, because you know that the schools have updated the information that's accurate and is then going out to the students that way as well, which is really interesting. I'm interested to hear what type of technology you guys use as well. I know someone's mentioned WhatsApps, and Matt obviously mentioned some new video content as well. I've seen sort of a whole variety over the years of schools using Snapchat and TikTok in different sort of areas as well. As agencies, are you using different technologies like that as well? And do you ever do them along with schools? Are there any initiatives that you're doing to work with your schools? Julian, I think Julian looks like he's.
Yeah, that's an interesting point there, Ben. And I guess it's interesting to see as to where is this technology going to take us, right? We have to admit that the engagement that we generate through video content and through live seminars, it's amazing, it's unbelievable, right? So we can reach so many people in so many places, but at the same time, what we also have to consider is the information is so out there that students can reach out to it anytime, anywhere. So what's our role? And that's what is going to make our job really challenging. And that's what we have to continue to improve into the technology. And that's where, the topic back again to the collaboration that agents and partners need to reinforce and needs to be stronger. It's super important for all of us. Technology talking, I guess it depends on the type of markets that you're dealing with, right? Like the younger generations, the junior ones, I guess the traditional methods to talk to parents, as Paula said, is essential, right? Because they're not really technology driven. Maybe the kids are, and there could be a room for us to tackle that. But then again, the young adults, people 20 to 30, 35 years old, they're more subject to be out there with the technology. That's where, YouTube videos, YouTube tutorials, infographics, and all these kind of methodologies are really essential to take into consideration. I guess it is great to work hand in hand with the partners, in this case, institutions, to put that information out there and be very accurate. But then again, that's all a sum of cumulative work that we have to develop. And the challenge, I believe, and I like to pick everyone's brain here, is what are we going to do with the technology, considering that it's so easy to access and students can access it anytime, anywhere? What's our role going to be there?
Role as an agent or sorry, Paula.
No worries, William. I'm so sorry. I think our role is mostly giving the confidence to the student, be the support, because the information is over there. You just said it's everywhere. I can go to the website, I can go to the webinar, I can attend a fair, and I will have the information. But the role as representatives and as agents is give the confidence to the student that they're gonna accomplish their dream.
Yeah, and also, you're completely right. But also, I guess with the instability that the pandemic has brought up, is also to provide that confidence that the institutions they're going are institutions that are going to prevail and they're going to be there, right? Because unfortunately, this is something that everyone is subject to the pandemic, right? But yeah, I agree with you, Paula, in that sense. It completely makes sense. Yeah, it's that support that the students might need, and the parents as well.
I have to add in something in that. Totally agree that what Bernardo said, that the partners and the agents have to work closely. Right now, yes, the information is out there. But the parents still want to see that you are in their own country. In Mexico, we had, I'm a member as well of another organization, and the online frauds has just skyrocketed because everybody just put a Facebook, just advertise something. And so again, that's something that we have to provide certain, as I was mentioning in my first comment, we have to come up with certainty and trust that we can build into our advertising. And one of the things that, for example, in Mexico we're doing, I'm also the president of AMTE. AMTE is the Mexican Association of Educational Tourism. And during the pandemic, we kind of doubled. And right now we're still growing every single month in members. So those kind of things is very good because of the parents. You can say we're members of AMTE, and kind of gives some sense of reliability that your company is safe, and the schools you are representing are also, they're going to be there when you arrive to Canada, to Australia. So I think, yes, the information and the confirmation and the reconfirmation that what they're buying, because in most of the cases, probably not a summer camp, if it's 2 weeks, or but in other kinds, when you're talking about 18 to young adults, it's a life changing. And most of them it not only is an investment in time, but also in money. So they have to be very careful in that. One thing that has helped us a lot during this time is that, and it was very difficult prior, with this technology and obviously Zoom or Hangouts or whatever, even WhatsApp with the camera, you kind of have video conference with students that are in that place, in that school, and that kind of builds a lot of. Is not the representative, is the user. The client probably may be the parents, but the user, the final user, is the student. You have to deal with two strategies: one with the parents, with the mother, or the mother has to be convinced, and the father has to be convinced of the price, and then you have the final user that is the one who has to enjoy it. So it kind of it brings a challenge for everyone to think of different strategies for every stakeholder. And one thing that we've seen that works really well, especially in young adults in young students with such as Noranglia, with the academic year programs, is to see, like, I'm not the one telling you, and a grown up or even the representative, but it's the student who is right now in school and using and enjoying it and everything, or a past student. So, and that was previously, where are they? Well, just give me the link and we can connect. That's some of the good things that we are experiencing in this way, and we have to take advantage of that.
I would add to that, in terms of the technology that we're using, it depends on what are we trying to achieve. Is this something that is going to be a student support or a family support? Because we look at the family experience journey, and I think, Paula, it might have been you that mentioned, is it the parent that is the person that we're promoting to? Is it the student? In our case, it has to be both. And I think in most cases, right, the student ultimately is coming, parent has to be okay with it, but is it something where I'm trying to be able to make sure that it's a support service that I'm providing, and that what tools can I best leverage to do that? I also have to make sure I'm taking into consideration safety and security of the information that I'm sharing. And so that'll play a big role into what kind of tools that we use. But I think the expectation is that the service needs to be there and it needs to be timely. Maybe one of the most difficult factors for us, let me take a step back. I'm sure that most of you are just like me, where you wake up in the morning and I've checked LinkedIn, WhatsApp, WeChat, Facebook, email, and that's before I get out of bed, right? So I'm going through these and then responding to multiple messages. One of the biggest factors for us to be able to make sure we're setting the right expectations with our partners and with their families is not immediately responding sometimes, and taking 5 minutes to step back and say, what is the real question here? What is the best way for me to deliver this? Instead of it just being fast, let me make sure that it's accurate and it meets what the family or the student is looking for. And I think that may be one of the biggest hurdles for us to get out of our own way with.
Yeah, I think, Matthew, you just touched a very important point, and I was making some notes when I'm listening to Paula and to William, and I believe there is so much information right now out there, and I think we all have done it. Like, we have done webinars, and we're doing webinars, and we're recording videos. We're doing a lot of initiatives to bring information to the students. And I think what is making the difference, and what will make the difference, is the service that we provide, or our partners provide to the students at the end. Because I had a case today. I was talking to a prospect student. I normally don't talk to students, but this is a relative of a friend of mine. So I was talking to him, and he knew everything. He knew all the immigration processes to come to Canada by detail. Like, he knew about the scores, everything, every single detail. So obviously he knew more than me, actually. So all what he wanted to do now is connect with the representative in Colombia that is going to be able to help him to do the process. He knows everything, and he already researched about the institution, etc., etc. So now it's just service. And as Matthew said, not only fast service, but the being able to add value to the student in the area where the student needs in reality. So I think that's the key now.
I think it's a process of education as well, right? We've seen that markets have evolved. Latin American market is, I guess, different compared to the European markets, right? And I guess if we compare the students from these two parts of the world, Europeans are a little bit more independent. They like the research a little bit more. They seek for themselves much more. The agent is always there to assist, but the Latin American student is a bit more dependent on the agent. And I guess that we all agree on that. I might be right or wrong, right? But there has to be a process of education where the student will be learning themselves to research more and to have more accurate information. So we literally validate that information. That's what we definitely are doing at the moment, and we will be able to do in the future. We will validate it. We will reassure that the students are going to the places where, you know, they're gonna get the delivery of education, they're gonna get the results that they're seeking, and the process that we're handling for them is just as accurate and as good as what they have researched previously. So I guess we will be seeing that evolution in the learning curve on students, parents in general, I guess so, on researching themselves and coming back to us, institutions and agents, and say, hey, this is what I know, this is what I believe needs to be done. Can you please assist me? And that's where we need to be very on point with the information that we continue to process and to inform the students with, which is beautiful. I think it's fantastic. It's interesting to see it, and I'm looking forward to see how that evolves.
I agree with Julian, right? I mean, again, students, the undergraduate students, or students who are 17, 18, they tend to be more dependent, whereas students who are postgraduate students or research students, they tend to be more independent. They tend to get more information on their own. They do more research and all that. So it, again, like you guys said, we need to focus, and everyone is different, so we need to tailor our strategies according to our market and according to our target audience, I guess, in that sense.
I think they're all really key points there as well, and it kind of leads me on to sort of the next topic that I kind of like to discuss, which is in terms of looking at how the pandemic's changed, how recruitment methods have changed. Have they? That's going to be my main point here, is have we changed a great deal? One of the things I always found in the first sort of 6-7 months of the pandemic was that I kept hearing on loads of webinars, we need to change, there's going to be a change, we need to change, but no one was saying what the actual change was. And at that point I was working within a school as well, and I was kind of having to sit and think, well, I have to sit and come up with all these changes myself. Has everyone else found the answer yet? And I'm still not sure people have, but I'm interested to hear from your guys' point of view how you see that sort of these changes evolving. One of the things that obviously is become a sort of big hot topic at the moment as well, especially in higher education, is the idea of aggregators. Which I mean, I might have said is a slight repackaging of the term super agent or master agent, as they used to be known as well. And I'm interested to find out from an agency and from an educator's perspective, do you think that's the way that future recruitment is going to go, down that route of aggregators and larger sort of agencies with sub-agencies feeding in? Or do you think that we'll continue to keep these partnerships alive like we do at the moment, and keep those sort of direct contacts as well?
I'm happy to take this one from the educator side right away. In terms of will things change and have they changed? Yes, but I think that's natural, right? In any given period of time, you're going to have different tools that you're going to leverage. I've worked in consulting at the university level for quite some time prior to coming over to North Anglia, and I would often sit in with heads of school, and they would say, we really want to do this international program, but I only want a couple of really good agents. They're going to send me 20 students a year. And I would say the next question I would ask them is, okay, what does that look like? Because all those agents are going to look the same in the beginning, right? The same way as all schools are going to look the same in the beginning. And then when you start peeling back the layers a little bit more, you find out, does this relationship really mutually benefit each other? And what I've tried to work towards with working with agents is to say, I'm not concerned if that agent sends me 1 student every 5 years, or if that agent is sending me 10 students every year. Is can I count on them? Are they relaying accurate information to the families? And am I receiving high quality students at the end of the day? So I think that we're utilizing these different tools, but we're still trying to get to the same point. So I think that if you're getting high quality students, it would be a shame to let those small partnerships, or what are deemed small partnerships, and those really strong relationships go to the wayside just to look at what the bigger agent could be. Because I think if all of us have been in this industry for quite some time, you'll see all those come and go as well. But those really good partnerships that have great relationships with families are always going to be there.
If I can jump into the agency part, and it's a very interesting question, Ben, what you just said, and I think that's, in my perspective, we still don't know where it's going to take us. Many people say, like, when are we going back to normality? And I think we won't. It's going to be a new world, and we still don't know how it's going to look like in every sense, in recruiting, in traveling, in teaching. So it would be very adventurous to say this is how it's going to be looking. Certainly, what we have achieved in terms of online advertising, probably right now, nobody's asking for a paper, for a brochure. At least right now, it's like nobody's asking. So that's something that is going to change significantly for the ones for the companies that rely on printing and shipping. All the sustainable movement right now, climate change and everything, that is going to also bring into consideration. Younger kids are taking that into consideration as well in deciding. At least they have asked me about what are they doing to recycle and all these kind of things. So I think in terms, in 2022, we're going to see what worked in 2020 and 2021, and to see how we can build into the next years. And certainly things, I think the online is going to stay, and brings a lot of opportunity, makes it work closer, and certainly the service that we're going to be doing as well is going to work. In terms of the small agencies and big agencies, I think that there's room for everyone. I do agree with Matt that if it's a good agent, they'll survive. It doesn't matter if you're big or small. If you're a good agent, you're providing good service, you're providing quality, you're specializing, you have a good relation with your clients and with your schools, you're gonna survive. Probably you're a big company and you're providing a lousy service, have a lot of rotation with your staff, you're gonna suffer. So I think that from my perspective as agency, I'm a mid-size agency, but growing from a very small agency once. So I kind of understand what a small agency has to do and the relation they have to build in order to make it. So I think in the other side is that the schools have to value that. And I'm very happy to hear that what Matt said, because usually they come and say, you have to send me 30 students. Come on, it's 30 students. It's a lot to one school. And then there's a lot of, probably that you could work with that when there was so much information. But if you build your business with good, reliable, doesn't matter the size of agents, that they can send you 2, 3, 4 students, quality students, well-informed, and you provide a good service of education, I think both organizations will make it.
Look, sorry, Matthew, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's interesting because I believe next year or once we'll be able to have some sort of clarity of international borders being more open to international students, agents are going to play a very important role here, right? Because institutions nowadays, a lot of institutions, they don't have, I mean, for an institution point of view, it's easier to have an in-country manager that liaises with the agents and keeps the relationship fresh and healthy, right? And that from an agent perspective is fantastic, right? I'm having someone here that is giving me the support that I need to be able to provide accurate information to my clients. That is essential, right? So whether the agencies are big or smaller, or if there's going to be aggregators, or if there's not going to be room for some, I think that that's not going to be the case. I believe that the case is that, you know, according to each one needs, the agents will be able to play an important role to specific partners, right? Because the smaller agents might be able to provide smaller numbers, but they might be able to assist the students in a more accurate way, very on point, right? Accompanying to the whole process. Big agencies have different processes, right? They might provide exactly the same process, but at a different scale, right? So both will be essential for the providers. The question is, how willing are the providers to work with bigger or smaller agents, right? Because, you know, some providers might say, oh no, I'd rather work with big ones, large numbers, volume, or some others are willing to say, you know what, I'd rather have small agents as well that I know that are going to provide quality students, but it's a whole process as well, right? You know, 30 students, 20 students, 5 students, they all take a process, and it's a pipeline that we have to drive. It's not as easy, right? So I guess that the discussion here is what the institutions are willing to do. Who are they willing to work with? Because I guess, you know, Paula might say it, and probably William as well. Some big organizations or big institutions, they're not willing to work with the small agents, even though small agents, because we all were small at some point, we have students, right? But it's like, no, I'd rather work with big ones. Sorry, we're not giving the opportunity to anyone else. So that's where, like, you know, those other aggregators and the let's say sub-agent topic comes into place. I don't want to say something here that might put me in a little bit of a risky position, but anyway, that's how basically it works, right? Like, and I guess you guys, you know, Paula and William can relate to this.
From the institution perspective, like in our case, we value all the relationships.
Great.
We value small or big agents. Something that I have seen for the past year is that based on the way that the agency approached the situation with the COVID, is the result of the effectiveness that they have seen, or that we have seen. I have seen agencies basically taking an approach of going on a survival mode, basically stopping all activities and doing the very minimum to minimize cost, obviously. But in the other hand, I have seen other agencies taking advantage of that and doing more activities. So the students are there, the inquiries are there, the potential is there. That's what I see. And obviously the ones that are taking advantage are the ones being more active in the market. So we are supporting all the agencies with all kind of initiatives, but I think it's very important to be very proactive, because I think what we are seeing and what I expect that is going to happen is that we're going to see a very good movement of mobility of students coming after September. I don't know, it depends on the countries, obviously, but I think for 2022, we'll see it more. So it's very important for the agencies to reactivate themselves and start doing more activities as well.
I agree with Bernardo. I mean, sorry.
No, please, sorry.
With Torrance as well, we work with our agents really closely, whether they're big agents or small agents. They're all vital in recruiting students for us, right? I mean, apart from just recruiting students, agents are there, like in Southeast Asia, for example, you know, where English in many countries is not the language, the main language. Agents help us, you know, to actually to manage the language barrier with parents and students as well. And on top of that, they also help us with not just recruiting students, like I said, they also help us with students with the visa application process. For a 16, 17, 18-year-old student, you know, it's really daunting. Going through the whole visa application process is really daunting for them. So having an agent there to assist students is really useful and really helpful. So yeah, definitely having agents do play a vital role in recruiting students for us, but that's for sure.
But hey, look, it's nice to hear that from you, Bernardo and Suraj, because, you know, like personally, we work with Torrance very closely in Australia, and to hear what you said, Bernardo, that you open to support agents, whether if they're big or small. That's fantastic. But that's the reality is another one. Australia is different as well. Not all the institutions here are willing to do the same. And that's something that is true, right? A lot of large organizations here, fair enough, they're not willing to work with even medium-sized agents, because they're set with certain specific agents for certain specific markets, and it's really hard to get into them. I respect their points of view and the politics, but that also puts all the agents from different sizes in a different position. So it would be fantastic if that was the case for everyone else, right? But the reality,
maybe it's time to look for new destinations like Canada.
definitely, completely agree.
Yeah.
It also is a two-way street. There's sometimes that you as an agent do not want to work with some schools because the schools are small or so and they say please to work with me, and I say, well, I can't because I have commitments with other schools. So it's also a two-way street. So I kind of relate to both sides, and I think if again, I think that there's room for everyone if you're working with quality and service.
I think one of the things as we talk about utilizing the technology that has been developed and leveraged over the past not a couple of months anymore, the past year and a half, as an institution, how are you utilizing that to be able to manage your agent network and provide the materials and the training necessary for them to be successful? So it's not a matter of I need an agent that's a certain size. It's how do I scale up what I'm able to provide out to my agents to give them the tools necessary to be successful, regardless of how many students that they're sending me. If you can do that part now, 5 students or 1 student a year doesn't make a difference because you're doing the same amount of work.
Yeah, and that's obviously, I'll jump in here and just quickly and say that's obviously where Edvisor tries to provide a solution there as well in terms of connecting agencies and schools. Because
bring it back there, just
you have obviously that connection. but you have that central source of information that you as a school are obviously able to update, ensure that all your pricing, and again, I'd highlight the fact that we have that. You can price per market, you can price per region, per zone, depending on how you do that as well as a school. You obviously are then in charge of the information that goes up. And as an agency, you have access to all of that information once you've connected through Edvisor. So you're able to sort of foster those partnerships and get that information gathering back and forth as well. And I will give a quick plug here to our new Edvisor messaging tool, which has just been introduced last week, which now allows you to communicate directly through the platform as well. So if you see a school's pricing and you think, oh, hold on a minute, I didn't know they had a special offer, I better double check that. Okay, you can send a message directly through Edvisor straight away. And I think that it's a key thing there as well from our point of view. We get asked a lot, do you only work with big agencies, or is this suitable for small agencies, or is it suitable for big schools or small schools? And the thing is, what we're trying to provide is a tech solution for everyone, because there's space for everyone in the market, and we want to be able to facilitate those connections as much as possible, so that the big schools and the small agencies, the small schools and the big agencies can all work together in our ecosystem, which I think is a key thing for everyone moving forward out of the pandemic as well. Sorry, Suraj, you were just about to say something before I jumped in.
No, I was going to say, just to answer your question as well, has the recruitment methods changed? Absolutely, right? Since the pandemic, everything has changed. The pandemic obviously has affected the whole world in horrible ways, that's for sure. But the one positive thing that has happened to all of us is that it has forced us to think outside the box in terms of recruitment, which we had never done before. There's heaps of online content these days, how there's videos on how an online classroom is held and all that we never used to have before. So definitely it has changed the way, the methods we have used to recruit students, I would say.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry,
after
Ben.
you, please.
Thank you. Well, regarding something that Bernardo said about new destinations, that's one of the biggest changes that we had as a company. Because normally BlueSat is working mostly for Australia and New Zealand, and now we had to make new agreements with schools from Canada, from USA, from Europe, because the students were asking for it. It's not like we needed it, was our market that was asking for these schools, and then we have to do these new agreements and learn again about the new markets and have these trainings. And that's something important that Matthew said, as like the students are normally the whole day on Zoom doing classes, and after they get into a webinar, another one in Zoom, so it's boring. It's the same thing, and it's the same for advisors, because normally all the schools are like, yeah, we have to do this training, but we have all the information, for example, in Edvisor or in the webpage of the institution. So that's something I would like to put in on the table as well, like how the representatives and how the schools can make the advisor fall in love with your institution. Because, you know, once the advisor fell in love with the institution, they tend to sell it more. But if you have the same training all over again, when you say like, this is a school, this is the campus, this is the prices, and that's it, all schools are saying the same. We have like 5 universities for the same destination. Why me as a recruitment, as an agent, should I send my students to your school and not another one? How can we make that conversation lighter with advisors?
I think that's where technology, I don't think will be able to replace a human. And I think that's very important. And what you just said, Paula, that as we continue to build those relationships, even I know we got to do it through the technology now because of the conditions, but I think it's very important. It's like I do a video conference with someone or even a phone call, and I want to see the other person's face. Like it has become so impersonal, everything, that we need the interaction with people. It's healthy to have the interaction with other people. So I think what you just said, Paula, is going to be the institutions that are going to be able to develop or to strengthen those relationships with people in an interactive way, having a personal conversation, not necessarily only this is the program, those are the fees. No, it's more like we need to be humans. We need to care about each other. So we need to ask questions, how the other person is doing, et cetera, et cetera. No, I think that's where we're going to be able to connect really. And the second part is going to come along, right? The preference for the institution, or as you say, fell in love with the institution, is going to happen as a consequence of the relationship. I'm talking about more, and my point of view is very biased on Latin America because I'm Latin, and we're very, very warm people and very relational people. I don't know about other cultures specifically, but I think we are all humans, and I think we all relate to that.
I want to contribute on that topic here, Paula, and I guess an important point to highlight here as well is the delivery methodologies of the institutions. That's going to be essential as well for that change, right? Yes, technology is going to be there. Yes, I think we mentioned this before with Matthew in our pre-session, that a lot of institutions were not prepared for online deliveries because, you know, we base on tourism as well, and the students travel to live the experience or living a one-on-one experience, you know, in country, right? And how is that going to change? But also, I guess the delivery of education has to also evolve, has to change, because the students nowadays, they want the experience of, I want to learn from somebody else who has been there, who's done it, who can tell me how to do it, and I can learn from that, not just the simple theory, because that also bores, right? So I guess that has to be a whole change as well. I'm a huge advocate to see that change, right? How institutions deliver programs. Let's talk about, well, I understand that ELICO's English programs is a completely different story. There's room for evolution there as well, and improvement. But if we're talking about the vocational sector and the higher education sector, I guess not only the technology, but the delivery of that information and that education has to change and has to evolve. Coaching, mentoring, and that's what students seek, because that's the questions that they ask us. Can you take me somewhere, or can you put me somewhere where I can learn through mentoring, not just the basic theory? Because, you know, to read a book, anyone can read a book. It's essential, of course, don't get me wrong, but students seek that information. They seek that experience from the providers, and only you guys can do that, right? And it comes back to what Paula said. When we fall in love with one of those institutions that we believe that we can put our hands on the fire for it because they deliver that education methodology, that's where the relationships kind of like boom, and that's where students kind of like come back to us and leave that experience, and it's being used as a peer-to-peer experience, which is what William mentioned earlier, right? So it's like, I believe in what the student has done and the experience that they have lived, rather than the agent only telling me or the provider only telling me. So it's a whole sort of like circular thing that goes around in the way that we have to continue improving. But the delivery method, I believe, is going to be essential in this change. I don't know what you guys think. William, probably, sorry, Bernardo, you probably could tell me a little bit about it, or maybe Matthew, as educators.
No, I agree. And I think the pandemic has not only brought challenges in the recruitment side, but also in the delivering side. And I think that's very key. And in our case, we have been able to adjust to the change. We were prepared in some way because we have been doing online or virtual distance education for many years. But what you're saying about the mentoring, about bringing just something different in the class, I think that's key, and that's something that we have been able to start doing now. And that goes to my point before. People want more value. They just don't want just a class, sitting on a class, especially now that they see they can do it virtually and receive some information, but then they need the interaction with the person and get the information from the person. And that happens through mentoring or different channels, different ways to do it.
I'd add to that the peer-to-peer learning opportunities. I think that's something where institutions were incredibly challenged, especially as students had to remain in their home country. How that's for us, often we have our international learners coming in and they need to be able to utilize their English language skills to be able to develop that going on to university. Well, how do I do that now when I'm living in China and I don't have anybody around me that's speaking English? So when we're able to connect students and try to do that, where I would normally say maybe I'll have a Chinese learner and a student from Brazil that are going to be share a dorm for the year, that's going to force them to utilize their English language. Can I set up opportunities to make sure that those two students are connecting? And then on the recruitment side, same kind of thing. I can't recall who had mentioned it earlier, but look, students listen to people like us all the time, right? We tell them the same thing. My school is great. We care about students, and we all do, right? But there's nothing different there. I think it's also important for us to wake up and I look in the mirror every day and say, there's nothing special about what we do, right? We're a very good institution. We have incredible IB programs, but we are $1,000 plane ride from 100 other schools in the world that can do the same thing. So what am I going to be able to do to separate myself? And if I can get those students from other cultures, even in the recruitment side of things, connected with a student from another country, that's great. That's the best opportunity, because now I'm providing an opportunity for that student who is in China to be able to utilize their language skills because they can't speak Portuguese to the student from Brazil. So it's an added benefit for my existing student, but the incoming student is gaining perspective from a learner that they're going to be a peer with.
Similar to Bernardo, Julian, we at Torrance as well, we have been delivering our courses online way before COVID, especially in China. We work with a partner, we deliver our courses online through that partner in China. We've been doing it really successfully as well. We have a huge number of students studying online courses in China. We also have a Torrance representative based in China to also engage with the students so that they don't lose touch with that connection with the university. So I think that is all very important. I mean, you can deliver courses online, but we need that engagement, constant engagement with these students as well. So we have been doing that really successfully for many years, and we're also looking at opportunities in other markets as well. So if you have any ideas, you can please write to me.
Okay, I'm gonna just push us on slightly here. We've actually reached the end of the hour, which has flown by, I've got to say. So I'm just gonna try and address some of the questions. We've had a couple of questions come in the Q&A and a couple of comments here as well. And this is actually one that's centered around the idea of engagement on high school senior students. But it's from Angela, who's asked, have you found the engagement with high school senior, how have you found the engagement with high school seniors engaging? Or their parents, because I work in an international school, and although they have access to all the institutions, they're tired of webinars and being connected all day with their normal school duties in their own countries as well. And that's actually an interesting point I would like to highlight as well. As someone mentioned, I think it was Suraj earlier, a bit of webinar fatigue, and certainly Zoom fatigue, which I think is something everyone is having to cope with these days as well. Is how do we continue to engage those students and sort of keep them interested in your programs?
I would like to jump in on that one. One of the things that we have been working is directly with the schools in Latin America. And if we're doing a webinar for a high school or university institutions, we try to match the school with the profile of the student for the high school in USA, in Canada, or other country. But I think you have to be more strategic regarding higher education, especially in this time where we're having this pandemic. And in Latin America, we're still having a lot of cases. So also the parents are kind of scared to let their kids go to another country because they don't know if they're going to be okay, if they're going to get a COVID. So we have to be really responsible on that side. But especially for high school, we're trying to do this match with high schools in Latin America and do the webinar just for the students from that high school that already has an IB. They already have this good profile that we're hoping for international education in high school, because we know it's not cheap. It's not something we can provide to any kind of school in Latin America, for example. But I think that's a good way to do it, to increase that engagement, not do it just public for everyone. So do it more targeted.
Yeah, I would imagine that obviously strengthens your partnership with the educator as well. Because if you're able to focus with that one educator in a location and say, hey, we're going to this high school to promote your programs specifically together, that's going to forward a much stronger relationship with that partner as well. I imagine as educators, they're exactly the sort of things that you guys would be very interested in doing as well, along with your partner agencies.
Definitely, absolutely. Any initiative that we can do to support the agencies and especially work closely with the institutions, with the let's say in this case, the local institutions in our countries, I think is very important. I believe this is something that is very key to do, and the engagement between the institution from let's say in this case our institutions in Canada as an example, with institutions abroad, let's say in Chile or Colombia or Mexico, is very important, and always with the hand of the agency, always going with the agency, because the idea is to support the agency. It's important to develop the relationship between the institutions, but with the understanding that the agency plays a very important role on it. So I think that's very key.
I agree. I also think that that's when having in-country representatives are really important, because they can then engage with the agents on a daily basis and frequently as well. I mean, being overseas sometimes is really hard to engage with agents offshore, given the time difference and all that. So having someone in country definitely helps. They're there to answer queries quickly. The customer service level goes up because it's the same time zone. They can respond immediately. Also having an in-country person is great, because you get to find out what's happening in the market. You get to find out what the competitors are doing as well. So definitely.
Yeah, I think in a time like with the pandemic, we also found that in-country operators were able to help navigate students returning home when they had to. So that level of service that we were able to provide out, I think, was incredibly valuable to our families. I don't know how we would have done it without having in-country reps.
Great. Great. I'm going to move on to another question here quickly, and I think this may well be actually aimed a little bit more towards the agent on the panel today as well. It's from Anna, who I know is based in Medellin, and she said, fairs-wise, how do you see the future of this recruitment strategy, and which kind of online fairs have really worked for you, taking into account all the different technology on fairs seen in the last year? Now, that question could go both ways, I'll admit here, because we obviously have the fairs where we've discussed catching up and with each other, and obviously in far off places around the world. But then we also have obviously the student fairs market, which is a huge recruitment tool for agencies and for schools as well. So I'm quite interested to hear your guys' thoughts on kind of, the future of fairs. And, I think mass gatherings inside hotel rooms have been something that people probably haven't thought of for the past 14 months. But we're now getting to a stage where that may be something we do again in the future.
I'd like to answer that question. I believe there's going to be room for both, right? I believe once vaccinations in countries as well as international borders open have been eased a little bit, we're going to go back to the normal fairs, right? That's going to be essential. People need that human interaction one-on-one. We seek that. It's natural for us. We require it, right? We need to see who we talk to face to face. But at the same time, the online fairs will continue to persist, and they are financially viable method for either providers as well as for education agents. They're easier to host. They got a large reach, which is really important, that sometimes cannot happen with the face-to-face ones. Therefore, there's going to be a balance between the two of them, and that's going to avoid the saturation of the online fatigue that we've been talking before, right? Because it's fair after fair after fair after online fair. That's just too much, because sometimes it becomes repetitive. So I guess the balance between those two will come up, will exist, as soon as countries might be able to manage a little bit more the situation with the pandemic. But then again, that's my perspective, and I believe that it would be great if there can be a mix, a hybrid between those two.
Yeah, I want to jump in that. I think that I kind of agree with Julian in some parts. I think that there's going to be room for both. If we remember back in probably 3 years, we were also fatigued of the physical fairs. So in one year in my company, we did, I think, like 16 fairs, different fairs. So it kind of is. I think we're gonna be very much more selective I think it's gonna be more focused in the physical ones. It will all depend on how open the country, the city are, and how the people are reacting. In the case of the online, we, at least in my company, we haven't seen any platform that really kind of engages. I think there are other ways in which we can connect. Again, in a more, if it's very difficult once you're online and physically you have 20 different providers, and to see each one is difficult. Online is even harder. And what we've seen, it didn't work out. What we saw, what it worked for us was just very selected, very niche providers. The providers really were happy because we're shorter, we're more focused, less people, but much more interested in what they were dealing. So I think there's a big opportunity there to really come up with a solution. I haven't seen anything that really comes and say this is what we're going to be doing. But certainly for 2022, when I think it's going to be room for both in some ways, in certain countries, in certain programs, but not nearly as we were in 2019. That's my opinion. And in the online, it's still a long way to really see how it's going to be doing in a really, I don't see it, at least in Mexico, some companies try to do it massively. And it was, in my perspective, it was a disaster. was tiring for both, for parents, for students, for providers. So we decided not to go that way.
I agree with William. I was able to see it or to review at least 8 or 9 different platforms for virtual fairs last year. And I know people were just trying to use the technology, the available, any available technology in order to accommodate student fairs or educational fairs. But I don't think there is a solution right now. I have seen something that, like some solutions that seem to be better, but I don't think there is a solution right now that could replace the in-person fairs, and especially because there is no guarantee of the engagement from the student and the institution. So the technology could be there that they can bring, or they can put videos there and maybe have brochures, etc. But how do you bring students not only to one event, but to the booths or the virtual booth, and have the students interact with the representatives? That's very challenging. And most of the times, most of the technology that I saw last year, it was not proven technology. So it was people trying to develop technology for that purpose. So when they were actually using it, like when we use it, like we did it obviously a few times, and it was crashing all the time, and we had a lot of issues.
And that kind of affects when you want to say, let's do a virtual, and say, no, it's terrible. I spent 8 hours there waiting for people to come in, or from the perspective of the student, I went in and there was no one, it was slow, no engagement. So yeah, I think there's still room to develop something nice there.
I'm just
Yeah,
on the other side. Sorry. I'm just on the other side. I know Bernardo and Suram, I know. Actually, Torrens, it's going to be part of the online fairs that we're going to host this year. We did our own platform. We're not renting one because we saw the same that you're saying. I went to a different fairs. They crashed it. You were just waiting there to someone to talk with you. It was pretty boring for the representatives, for the students, and everything. So what we did was a video game that it's actually a virtual fair. So once you get into the platform, you can like walk around the fair and touch everything and try to do it as most interactive as possible. It worked for us. We did one in November, and we're gonna have 2 this year. And it was great for us for applications, for lead generation, and the universities came out with a good sensation after the event. Like the representatives were like, we like it, we like the platform, we didn't have any problems. So I just have the other side on this subject, but it's just because obviously we needed to do everything from scratch. We normally did these presential fairs and like William said, one and to another, and with the flyers and everything. And it was a problem normally, but with online, what we want to do in the future, once the borders are open and the situation gets better, it's keep both. So having the one in the hotel, but replicate that in the platform. So the students, for example, if I'm doing a fair here in Chile, I will be able to replicate for all Latin America. So if a student from Ecuador wants to get in, he will be able to jump in.
Interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear both sides of the coin there as well, because obviously, and I think it's really reflective of what's happening in the market. People have had very different experiences over the past year, in the same way that people, some people have had great success selling online programs, some people not quite as much. Some people have had really good experiences with online fairs, some people not so much. So I think it's really interesting seeing how that sort of diversity reaches across as well. We are getting to the time where we'll need to wrap this up, unfortunately. I'm just going to key one person's been asking quite a few questions in the Q&A, so I'm just going to address some of their questions very quickly. And I'm interested to hear from your perspectives as well, because reading these comments and questions, I'm a little surprised actually from having an educator's background is here as well. But Thomas has said to us, what can I expect from the institution I partner with in terms of marketing and support and branding. It's very lonely out here as a small agency trying to get and keep a foot in the door to make sure that you can reach out for marketing. You can, sure, you can reach out for marketing materials that are generic, but it's hard developing materials to use on so many platforms specific to the market in Vietnam. And then he's kind of gone on to say as well that no one contacts him with follow-ups to students that look promising recruitment-wise, but they could maybe do with that personal touch and reaching out. Now, that's obviously a lot of different points in there as well. But my head as an educator immediately thinks, well, normally you would provide different types of materials. You would try and adapt your materials to your different markets as well. Something I'm sure you've all done as well. But if you were in the position of being that smaller agency, maybe not getting that response, how might you sort of try and reach out to your schools? And as schools, what would you do to engage that agency back into sending and working with you?
I would say as an agent, I'm sorry, Julian.
No, go for it, please.
It will be super short answer, but we were a small agency before, and normally what I did was staying in the phone and emailing the institution until they responded. And if it took me a week or so to do it, I will do it. But I think obviously the institutions work with a lot of agencies, and the agencies work with a lot of institutions normally. So having the response the same day and giving up is not an option. You have to be like consistent and trying to get that communication. I'm sure that if your agency has a good proposal for the institution, and I'm gonna talk about the institutions, I'm sorry, but if you go with a good proposal and saying, we have this idea, we want you in, the institution normally will say, I want to be in.
I think.
Go ahead, Julian.
Sorry.
And
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I got something really interesting to say here, and attending to Matthew's question is, I'm not trying to excuse anyone here, but we suffer something similar to what he did, which is lacking a little bit of information and support from some providers, right? But I guess we have to be empathetic here, and we need to understand that we went through a pandemic, right? And a lot of institutions have struggled to make that shift from the face-to-face to the online, as well as continue to deliver high quality programs and education, right? As well as the same time as trying to feed the agents and keep them engaged with marketing materials. So I guess there's a very thin line here that we have to probably learn and become very consistent in the support that we have with each other, right? The agent and the provider, because for us has also been difficult, right? Like whether if you're a big agency or a small agency, the struggle has been there, and it is there, and we have to accept it. It's a reality, right? And we still got 6 more months. I'm talking about Australia in particular. We got 6 more months of borders closure, and that's going to be really challenging for everyone here. Therefore, I understand that for some institutions, the struggle is also really, really, really real, right? And for them to be able to provide that marketing material or those news strategies, it's also hard. So I guess that comes back to the relationship that we have with each other, the communication that we establish, and how we're able to implement new alternatives on whether if it's online or whether it's face-to-face delivery, etc., etc. But I guess every institution is different across the world, right? I guess US, Canada, Europe work differently. So I guess the perspective changes. So maybe, Matthew will have a different experience to what, a provider in Australia like Suraj might have, right? So I guess that changes from continent to continent as well.
I wanted to jump there, and I have seen there is a perception from the agency side that the institutions have the resources always available, right? And they need to support the agencies. And as Julian was saying, we went through a crazy time last year. I recall from maybe March to May or even June, it was so uncertain that it was very hard to know what the company was going to do. And they were trying to, like our company was trying to adapt to the conditions at that moment. So obviously, we needed to make drastic changes, and obviously we cut a lot of expenses, and we did a lot of things because we didn't know exactly what to expect. So from the agency side, from the agency perspective, it's very important to understand that the institutions go through a very difficult time as well, and it was not easy to continue doing or investing the same way that we were doing it before, or doing the same type of activities or the same amount of activities. Obviously, now we have come up with a plan, and things are more smooth, and we have seen, I think we're seeing the light on the other side of the tunnel, and we're very positive on the what is going to happen in the near future. But it's still, I think it's very, very important to be very understandable that we went, same as the agencies, the institutions, we went through a very difficult time as well.
I guess also, sorry, Matthew, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I insist.
Yeah. So I was going to say, it all depends on the factors, right? Because it's quite hard to say why, unless we know the full story as to why they're not responding to agents and all that. So there'll be a lot of factors behind that. I mean, in general, if you're a key agent and if the institution is not responding to you on time, then there's some issues that the institution needs to deal with. But there might be other factors. So it's quite hard to kind of answer the question, not knowing the full story as to why a particular institution is not responding on time.
Yeah, I would just to echo on a few of those items. I'm sure that you can all look at this, and we're all in different countries, right? But the US dropped 78% in new student enrollment last year. That's a significant number. We've been very fortunate as an institution to be able to maintain our staffing, but I'm sure that all of us can go through our contacts right now and identify 10 people that are highly talented in what they do and are looking for new positions, just because it's the nature of the beast, right? So Bernardo, to what your point is, the assumption is that the institution has the resources, but often the institutions have a handful of people wearing many, many, many hats. So I would say if it's a matter of marketing pieces, right? If it's a marketing initiative that you want to do, how, and to Paula, to your point, how can you make it easy for me to say yes, right? So make that proposal so clear and easy for me to go through. If it's a book, I don't have time to read it. I have 500 emails a day. So can you make it very concise to what you're trying to achieve? Am I going to have confidence that my brand is going to be maintained? That our brand guidelines are going to be followed, and then am I confident that the content is going to stay within the legal requirements that I have to follow? So those are going to be the three big things I want to see when I'm reviewing a proposal: fast, accurate, and within the letter of the law. If you can do that, then you might find that you get a little bit further, a little faster.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. We've kept ourselves 22 minutes past the time, which might be our longest one yet, but I'd like to give a massive thanks. I think there's a lot of takeaways to take from today's event, today's panel. There's been a huge amount of information in here. The recording will be sent out to everyone after the panel as well. But the things I'm sort of taking away from today's discussion is that there is definitely space for everyone in the market, whether you be a big agency, small agency, medium-sized agency, likewise big schools, small schools, medium schools as well. I think that focused actions and focused actions in terms of marketing and also in terms of collaboration with your schools and partner agents as well is key moving forward. And obviously engagement. And of course, that engagement can be facilitated through Edvisor and through the use of the Edvisor platform. And of course, our brand new Edvisor messaging tool, which I implore everyone to log on and have a little look at as soon as you can as well. A huge thanks once again to Julian, to Suraj, to Paula, Bernardo, Matthew, and William as well. Another big thanks to NIB for sponsoring this event, and thanks to Kath for coming on and joining us earlier today. We thank you all immensely for joining us, and we will see you at our next Industry Leaders panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Good night.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.